Hello and welcome, and this is Peter. The very first thing I'd like to do is say thank you very much for listening to this audio. I really appreciate you. Thank you very much. Today's audio is about a concept that I can tell you salesmen struggle with. And I mean, we really struggle with this one, okay? But if you can get this, if you can live this, if you can be this, you will sell more deals, right? You will sell a higher percentage of deals, you will sell larger deals, and you will sell more deals if you can get this. Okay? So the distinction is called committed and unattached. Right? Committed and unattached. And as I say, this is a very difficult distinction for sales reps to get, for people who sell things to get. So what does that mean, committed and unattached? Well, let's look at the flip side of it. What are most salespeople when they're going after a sale? They're committed to the sale and they are attached to the outcome. Okay? They really want the deal. You know, why do they really want the deal? A variety of reasons. The number one, which is money. Okay? But along with money comes prestige, comes recognition, those sorts of things, comes validation in the social group. There's a lot of reasons why salesmen want to get this deal, right? And you've either been one or you've seen salesmen who are absolutely manic about this current deal that they're doing. And they're just working on it and working on it and working on it. And you can see that they're really attached to the outcome. They really want it. And the deal really means something to them personally. Okay? The winning of the deal becomes a personal validation for the sales rep. It becomes money, right? But it becomes more than about money. It becomes about who they are. Am I successful? Do I still have it in the face of ever improving competition? Or is it like the time I lost the Johnson & Johnson deal, and when I lost the deal, despite the fact it wasn't anything to do with me, I felt like a loser. I felt like I didn't have what it takes. I felt like giving up. That's what attached looks like. So I was attached to the outcome of the Johnson & Johnson deal that I talked about. I haven't talked about another deal, about the St. George Bank deal, and I was attached to that too. So in general, us salesmen, when we're going for a deal, we are attached to that deal. We are attached to the outcome that's going to be generated by this deal. We really want it, and we want it badly. Okay? We want it, and we want it badly, and we're really attached to getting this deal. That's generally how we are, right? Now, a lot of sales books, a lot of sales training will tell you to be committed to the deal. Go get the deal, be committed to it. They won't talk about attachment in general. The sales training books won't talk about attachment. But we tend to get attached to the things we're really committed to. We tend to get attached to the things that are really important to us. Okay? It's just human nature. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's not good, it's not bad. It's just human nature. We get attached to the things that are important to us. We get attached to the things we love. We get attached to our houses. We get attached to our families. We get attached to our jobs even at some point, no matter how much we love it or hate it, right? We tend to get attached to the things that we care about. We tend to get attached to the things that are familiar. And we tend to experience a feeling of loss if these things somehow go away, right? So that's what attachment looks like. Attachment looks like, oh, I really want this thing. If this thing goes away, I'm really unhappy. I'm really upset. And I'm going to spend some time being unhappy and upset. And the things that I've lost in the past that I was attached to, I'm going to spend time talking about them and thinking about them. And a part of my energy is going to go into these things, right? Starting to see why attachment is both good and bad, or workable and unworkable. Starting to see. So if we're attached to the sale, if we're attached to the deal, we might just get, per se, a little bit too close to it, right? It might just become more than what it is that it should be, which is just another deal, right? So this commitment is great. Go at it 100% full out, play full out and be having fun is another thing that we'll talk about later. But play full out, play hard, be committed is what works. And then there's this question of attachment, becoming attached to this thing that you're playing so hard to get. Becoming attached to that, right? So if being attached to a deal or being attached to a sale actually leads you to closing less sales and closing less deals, because you'll be upset and aggravated and pick at them over time, and they'll, the ones you lose, they'll wear down your self-esteem, your feeling of success, your feeling of self-worth. You'll start wondering, do I still have it? Do I still got what it takes? All those things, okay? You'll be worried about all those things instead of getting back on the pony and go out and getting the next deal. That's what will happen. So what's unattached? What is unattached? Unattached. When I say unattached, I mean unattached to the outcome. Okay? This is actually a difficult thing to explain, and it's an even more difficult thing to do. Okay? It's quite difficult for people, for men, to look at a situation that's really important to them and to put their heart and soul and all their effort into it, and then be unattached to the outcome. It's actually pretty difficult. Okay, it took me, gentlemen, I'm going to tell you this straight up, it took me years to master this. Right? This is not something that I heard once in a landmark forum and then went out and did it and I was a master at it. This took me years to master the art, the way of being called committed and unattached. So please do not expect to listen to this one audio and then have any real clue about how to go out and be committed and unattached. It's going to take practice. You're going to have to work at important things in your life, have them not work out the way that you want them, and be unattached to the fact that they did not work out the way that you wanted it to work out. And each time that happens, you'll get a little better at being committed and unattached. Okay? That's the learning. The place to learn how to be committed and unattached is in the face of something that you were committed to that did not work out the way that you wanted it to, and then the ability to transition from that to whatever is the next possibility. Okay? That is the place where you'll learn to be unattached, because you'll put it into practice, and in putting it into practice, you will get better at it. Right? So what is this unattached idea? The unattached idea is not that whatever it is that you're committed to achieving, whatever possibility you're committed to producing, is not important to you. It's not that it's not important to you, right? Because if you're committed to it, it probably is important to you. It's not that you are indifferent about it. It's not indifference. Okay, these are the things that it's not. But what is it? What is it? It's the position of being, the way of being, that even if I gave this thing my 110% effort, even if it was the possibility that I'd invented for myself and I was committed to achieving, even if I invested large amounts of time or money and effort into this thing, even if I did all these things, and the outcome that I wanted to generate in the world did not happen, I don't allow that to dominate my way of being. I don't allow that to dominate my way of thinking. I take a look at that and go, okay, I didn't get the result that I was committed to. That's fine. It's fine. Let it be. Just let it be. Right? Now that's unattached. It's not that it was unimportant. It's not that you were indifferent. It's that having put the effort in and got the result you got, you let it be. And another thing that I do is I call that perfect. I let it be and call it perfect. That's perfect what happened. The way that this worked out was perfect. I did everything I could. Oftentimes I will go through and review what I did to see if I made any mistakes. I'll review what I did to see if I could have done something better. And, maybe in those reviews I find something I could have done better. Maybe I find something I could have not done. That's what reviews are for. But in the end, I call the result perfect, the way that it should be, and I let it be. Okay? That's unattached to the outcome. I didn't get the result I want. I'm still going to call it perfect. I'm going to let it be, and I'm just going to be content with that and be happy with that, as you might say. Right? Now this flies in the face of most sales training. Most sales training will say, when you lose a deal, it will generate energy for your next deal to be really pissed off about that, to be upset about that, to be angry about that. Right? Most sales training will say, you should do a post-mortem on your sales process, and you should be dissatisfied, unhappy with the fact that you lost, because you're a winner and you don't like this losing stuff. Okay? Most sales training will focus on that sort of paradigm, right? But what that will do is, if you lose a few in a row, you'll start questioning yourself, and you'll tend to then lose more. Okay? Versus, if you are unattached to the outcome, you'll lose some, you'll win some, and you'll lose some. But you'll win more, and you'll lose less if you're unattached to the outcome. If you label the outcome as perfect, it's perfect as it is, I let it be, I will review it to see if there's some lessons to be learned, but it's perfect what happened. Let it be. It's okay. Perhaps that's how this creator who put us here intended it to be. Right? Perhaps. You don't know. I don't know the mind of the creator. And if we're just evolutionary, highly evolved slugs, then who's to say which way things are to be anyway? Okay? If we're all just an accident, who's to say which ways things should be? Right? So you have this question of, can I, when something doesn't go my way, can I just leave it and let it be and call it perfect, whole and complete, and move on? Can I do that? Or am I going to stay attached to that situation, attached to that thing that I cared about, right? And in sales, it's the deals. You know, am I attached to that deal I lost? I really cared about this deal, but I lost it. Can I just let it be and move on? Okay? Now I'm going to give you a fairly startling example of committed yet unattached to the outcome, right? And, you know, I've mentioned that I did the Landmark Forum the first time over the issues with my wife, who was being horrible and nasty to me, which I was not prepared to accept for the next, 20 or 30 years. And we did the forum, and she improved for about 6 months, etc. So I was what you would call committed to my marriage and my relationship with my wife. However, given that she has agency, she has free will, she can choose to do whatever it is that she chooses to do. Now, my wife chose to be horrible and nasty to me again, and she knew it and she understood it, and her position was, you have to pay for me regardless of how I treat you. You can't get rid of me. I'm your wife, right? That was her position. Now, she knew and understood about this concept of committed and unattached, and she ran the risk. Literally, she ran the risk. The risk was, I'm your wife, I can screw you over in the divorce courts if you ever divorce me, it's cheaper to keep me, I can treat you terribly, and there's nothing you can do about it. Really? There's nothing I can do about that? We shall see. Okay? And of course, in the end, I divorced her. And she was very surprised that I divorced her. Why? I don't know, because I told her I was divorcing her. I told my wife in April 2002, I will divorce you. Right? Now, we did come to an agreement to remain in Ireland long enough to get the kids Irish citizenship, but from the moment I said, I am going to divorce you, there was, in April 2002, there was never a minute that divorce was not going to go through. It was always going to happen. Okay? Now, that's committed and unattached. If my wife had treated me properly, I'd still be married to her because I loved her. She was very important to me. She was allegedly the mother of my children, although there's no evidence for that. Right? Now, what happened with those two children? Well, I was committed and unattached to those children as well. How did that work out? Well, when my authority over my children was challenged by men with guns and cages, and they ostensibly said through the legal system, these are our children. We get to decide what happens with our children. That's what a family law court is, gentlemen. A family law court is, we own these children, sir. You don't. They are our children. We have authority over them, and we get to decide what happens. We, the judges and magistrates of the family law court, we have authority over these children. So what was my response to that? My response to that was, oh, okay, fantastic. They're your children. Off you go. They're your children. Knock yourself out. I disown them. Not my children now, never were my children. Unattached, gentlemen. Unattached. I was committed to the welfare of my children, but if people come along with guns and cages and say, well, these are not your children, these are our children, my take on that was, sure, they're your children. Off you go. knock yourself out, you look after them. Of course, gentlemen, you all know what comes next from these family law courts. You all know the next thing that comes along is a demand that you pay for their children, right? You know that comes along. It's called child support. So when the demand for child support came along, I said, no, I'm not paying this child support. They're your children. You claim to have authority over these children. With authority goes responsibility. You're responsible for these children, not me. And the judge said, well, I'll throw you in jail if you don't pay. And I said to the judge, if you unlawfully jail me, I'll kill you. And then I'll stand trial and I'll take my chances that I'll get one man in the jury to see things my way. So the judge very wisely rethought the matter and didn't issue the arrest warrant, because I would kill him if he did, right? So you kind of have this issue. Now, absolutely, gentlemen, I was committed to my children. I worked my little butt off for years and years and years. 14, 15, 16, sometimes 18 hours a day. Sometimes, gentlemen, I worked 36 hours straight, then took some sleep, got up and worked 36 hours straight again, took some sleep, got up, worked 36 hours straight again. I was quite well known for working what we used to call 36-hour days. We'd start at 9 o'clock in the morning on one day and you just work 36 hours and go home and get some sleep and come back and do it all again. I was quite well known for that. I was absolutely committed to the welfare of my children, while I considered them my children. But once men with guns and cages came along and said, no, they're not your children, they're our children. And I turned around to my community and said, really? Does my community agree with this? That these children don't belong to me, that I have no authority over my children, that my word over my children will not be respected? Does my community agree with this? And apparently my community did. So I said, okay, they're obviously not my children. I don't have the authority over them, over my word, so I obviously have no responsibility for them. I'm unattached. I'm walking away. This situation is perfect. That these children have now been disowned and now not only have no father, but never had a father. That's perfect. That's exactly what you people want. Knock yourselves out. Enjoy your victory. And I was unattached, and I simply walked away. Now, gentlemen, if I can simply walk away because I'm unattached to my former children, you, sir, can learn to walk away from a deal that you lost and not have it mean anything. Not have it control the future of your life, right? Because, gentlemen, you know men out there who are in great emotional distress because their children have been taken from them and they're paying this alimony and child support and they are still attached to their children. And if I use the divorce cases of men and point to you to go and talk to men who are still attached to their children and see what effect that is having on that man's life, you will see that the effect on that man's life of being attached to his children is massive. Sure, he'll be looking good, and you will already have heard that. He'll be looking good. He'll be spray painting over it. He'll be telling you how he's recovering and all the rest of it, just like my friend Bruce Napthali, whose story you would have heard by now. And if you haven't heard the story of Bruce Napthali, go back and listen to it. Okay? It's in the audio called Looking Good. So if you're listening to this audio and you haven't listened to the audio on Looking Good, stop now, go back and listen to it. Right? So my friend Bruce Napthali, who had his child taken from him, his little baby girl, he came back to work and he was looking good, and he was telling us all how he was over that and getting better and all the rest of it, and then he committed suicide. That's what attachment can do in the end. The result of attachment in the end can be actual suicide, which of course I would argue is not very constructive or good for any man, right? So Bruce Napthali, for example, was committed and attached to his little baby girl. And when his little baby girl was taken from him through no fault of his own, he committed suicide. On the other hand, I had had years of practice, of learning, committed and unattached. And when it came down to it, I was able to sever my relationships with my alleged former children and be completely unattached to the outcome. And yes, gentlemen, that nearly killed me along the way. I was suicidal during that period. It was tough. Okay? So don't get the idea that being unattached to something or someone that you actually love or care about is easy. It's not quite like that. It's not easy, but it will eventually be in your best interest. So in terms of deals, being unattached to the deal that you're doing may not be easy, but it's certainly easier than being unattached to your children, right? And in the long term, being unattached to the deals that you do will get you more deals. It will make you more money. You will win more deals and lose fewer deals if you can be unattached to the deals that you're doing, like I was unattached to my former children. Because I'd spent years learning, training, practicing how to be unattached to an outcome. And in fact, I call the outcome of my former children growing up without a father perfect. I say that's perfect. That's exactly how it should be. Children without fathers is exactly how it should be, because that's what everybody agreed it should. That's how everybody agreed it should be. Must be perfect. And I can tell you, when I throw that back at women, and I say back at women, oh, children growing up without fathers is absolutely perfect. Indeed, I encourage young men not to become fathers because there's no point. Because fathers are worthless. They have no value. They're not respected. And that's perfect that they're worthless and have no value and not respected, because everyone agrees that fathers have no value, have no usefulness, should not be respected, and should have no rights secured. Everyone agrees to that. So that must be perfect. That must be how things should be. Oh, women get very upset about that comment, gentlemen, despite the fact that they supported it in my case. That comment they supported by their actions. They get very upset when it's put back to them. So when you're looking at this thing you want to do of becoming a salesman, being a salesman who can sell $1 million deals to $1 billion companies competently with a high win ratio, you're listening to my voice? That's where you want to be, right? You're listening to my voice. You want to be a very successful business intelligence salesman selling $1 million deals to $1 billion companies and organizations. That's where you want to be, right? And you should be absolutely committed to being that, the possibility of that, and you should be unattached to the outcome of being that, and unattached to the outcome of any individual deal. And if you can remain unattached, you will be far more successful in doing exactly what I described if you can just remain unattached. Unattached to the outcome and keep working on it and working on it and working on it, and one day it will just all magically happen. You will become like me in sales. You'll become an overnight success. It just took me 5 or 6 years to get there. Okay? I took 6 years to become an overnight success as a salesman, working just as hard as I could. Okay? And when I was finally successful, everyone was like, oh wow, this is a real surprise. No, I put in the hard yards. I put in the hard hours. And early on, I was very attached to the outcomes. Like the Johnson & Johnson deal I mentioned, I was very attached to the outcome, and losing that deal, I nearly quit. I went home, as I said, I got drunk for a few days, and I nearly quit being a salesman over the Johnson & Johnson deal. And it was the kind words of Maggie Irwin, my boss, who got me back on the horse and charging out next year trying to do better, make myself a salesman. Okay? I was attached back then. I was really, really, really attached to the outcomes. And it was only as a part of all this training of a landmark forum to become unattached to the outcome that I finally, unattached to the outcome is a big part of being successful as a salesman. When you're unattached to the outcome, you don't come across as needy of this deal. You don't come across as desperate. You come across as cool and calm and in control, and you want the deal, but you don't need it. Right? Being unattached to the outcome of a deal is a very, very, very powerful place to be, and a very powerful place to stand as you are selling that deal, gentlemen. Okay? So, in this audio, what I talked about was committed and unattached. I don't expect you to be able to learn how to become unattached to a deal just by listening to this audio. That's not how this works. How this works is the next time you lose a deal, right? The next time you lose a deal, play back this audio, listen to it, and think about my words and say, how can I be unattached to this loss? I can review it. I can go through what happened. I can look at what I could have done better. I can look at what I might have not done, and I can learn from that experience, but I'm going to be unattached to that deal. Let me practice being unattached to this outcome. That's when you're going to learn how to be unattached, gentlemen. You're going to learn how to be unattached when you are losing deals. Okay? And gentlemen, you will keep losing deals. I don't know anybody with 100% success rate in our space. Not in the big deals. I mean, in the big deals, when we know who all the competitors are, right? IBM, Oracle, Teradata, and then the outsourcers, the Tatas, the Infosys of the world, the Wipros. All these guys are betting on all these BI projects, right? You, who I'm talking to, most likely, you're the owner of a small BI company, or you're one of the people in those big companies who's wanting to break in to be more successful in selling your deals, right? So no matter which one you are, the owner of a small company or the salesman in a small BI company, or one of those people in those big companies who's going after those deals, no matter which one you are, being committed and unattached is going to help you win more deals, and you're going to continue to go up against very proficient, skillful competitors. So you're going to lose some deals, and you're going to have plenty of practice or plenty of opportunity to practice committed and unattached. Okay? And when you can get to my sort of win rate of 75% of the deals you go after, even if you've got to lose it a couple of times to win it in the end, you'll be doing really good. Okay? You'll be doing really good. So with that, gentlemen, I'd like to say thank you very much for listening, and bye for now.